Today we are going to discuss about the Chapati experiment. And basically, this experiment is discussed when we discuss research ethics and informed consent. Now, let us discuss about some of the facts of this experiment. This experiment was conducted in 1969 and the location was Coventry in United Kingdom. The substance used in this experiment was iron 59, which is a radioactive isotope. It was administered by mixing it with chapatis, and they were fed to participants who were 21 Asian women, mostly Punjabi speakers, recruited from general practices. The main objective of this study was to investigate iron absorption in Asian women with anemia. And it was conducted by Medical Research Council. What were the participants in this study told? There was no official account in terms of the usage of these radioactive isotope. Rather, the informed consent obtained was in presence of an English fluent family member. The women were told that the chapati would help treat anemia and nothing more. The hidden details of this experiment: the women were not told they were research subjects. No explanation of radioactive substances for research purposes would be used in the chapati were not told. And the periodic trips to the facility presented as hospital visits. However, actually, they were atomic energy research establishments. One of the witnesses, Pritam Kaur, she narrates that I went to my doctor about migraines. He said I might have anemia and suggested I eat special chapatis he would send. At no point was I told I was part of an experiment. If I had known, I never would have agreed. And this interview experts are available in the Deadly Experiments, a 1995 research article. Now, let us discuss about informed consent in research. We would see that some of the barriers, like language barriers, in this case, the participant were well versed in language, an Indian language. However, they had a barrier in terms of understanding English, and children were used as interpreters. Now, a Gujarati translator for Punjabi speaking population may not be suffice or sufficient in order to this consent being informed while carrying out the research. And hiding the word radiation in all participant languages casts cloud on the study. And especially when it comes to power imbalance between the participant and the researcher, you need to be very careful how you obtain the informed consent. The doctor patient could have a dual role, and the vulnerability of the participants need to be considered. Researchers, as trusted clinicians, when such a situation arises, then the consent should be clear. Same is the case when we conduct research on students, whether it is an medical research or non-medical research. We need to be wary of this power imbalance role. Participants as vulnerable, and if they are dependent on the researchers, this informed consent need to be re-examined for even a iota of barrier or being coerced into carrying the research. Now, this study brings about the intersectional vulnerability. The participants was recent migrants, limited English fluency, low socio-economic status, and they were young women who were not well educated. And they were given this therapeutic misconception. The participant believed that the treatment was for their benefit, but in turn, it was not. They also did not understand the nature of research. They confused treatment with experimentation. So these factors have to be considered when we talk about informed consent. And when this experiment was publicly discovered in 1995, that there was this deadly experiments documentary. Channel 4 and the documentary highlighting unauthorized radiation studies in the United Kingdom and the United States. The medical establishment's initial response was they downplayed it. They downplayed the concerns, stating that informed consent was obtained. However, in July 1995, Jeffrey Tobias, British Medical Journal's commentary, highlighted ethical failures. 1995 to 1998, an independent inquiries conducted by Coventry Health Authority and Medical MRC, the Medical Research Committee, they find that there has been ethical failures while obtaining informed consent. Some of the immediate impact, the public outrage and loss of trust in research, especially medical research in this case. There has been parliamentary calls for statutory inquiry, scrutiny of historical radiation studies which were conducted in the United Kingdom and United States. In terms of regulatory policy changes, it strengthened the ethical oversight in research, improved the informed consent procedures, requirements of written information in participant languages, mandatory ethics committee approval for all human studies. The long-term recognition, MRC issued unreserved apology to participants and family in September 2023. So now let us examine what are the informed consent's core principles. Disclosure. Full disclosure. Honest information about the study purpose have to be disclosed. Procedures, risks, benefits in language participants understand. Comprehension. Ensure participants truly understand information. They just don't receive it. verify understanding across language and literacy barriers. There should be voluntariness. Participation must be free from coercion or undue influence. No exploitation of power differentials or vulnerability. Autonomous choice. Respect for patients as independent agents with dignity. Right to refuse without penalty or loss of care. Now, these are some of the core principles which needs to be taken care by the researchers while we consider this concept of informed consent in research. Now, what did the Chapati experiment violate? Disclosure failed. No clear information about research purpose. No explanation of radioactive substance. Deceptions about the nature of visits. The voluntariness was compromised. In terms of undue influence, the doctor and the patient relationship was used to obtain undue influence, in turn, the informed consent. Especially when it comes to vulnerable population, see to it that in the study that exploitation happened and they were not given a real choice offered in order to make a choice as regards to whether to participate or not to participate. There were language barriers which were not addressed. Wrong language translator used. Sometimes children used as interpreters. No verification of understanding. Rather, the information was given in an alien language. In other words, we can observe that in Chapati experiments, the autonomy was denied. Women treated as subjects, not persons. No respect for self determination. Dignity stripped through deception. Now, this experiment has given us key lessons for modern research. Our good intentions are not enough. Researchers may genuinely believe they are helping, but a lack of transparency or honesty and respect for participants' autonomy is unethical, regardless of whether the intent is bona fide or good. We have a duty to protect vulnerable population, those with multiple disadvantages like language barriers, economic dependence, migration status. You need to give them enhanced protection, not standard consent procedures. And if you have a role conflict, like when clinicians serve as researcher, their authority can undermine true voluntary participation. Independent consent processes and oversights are essential when we are uh, 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 when we are doing research on vulnerable population and also when there is a role conflict. Some of the modern safeguards as regards to what we now require in terms of conducting such experiments, there are institutional review boards. These are independent ethics committees, and they must approve all human research before it begins. Written informed consent, clear, accessible documents in participants' language, jargon free, language services, professional interpreters, materials translated, no family members as interpreters. Vulnerable population. You try to enhance oversight for economically disadvantaged migrants, minorities. Researcher independence. There is a need to separate clinician, researcher from treating physicians. This will avoid conflicts of interest. Also, there is a need for right to withdraw. Patients can quit anytime without any penalty or sometimes a loss of medical care or continuity of medical care. Follow up and reporting. You need to have an ongoing contact, disclosure of findings, and compensation if any harm occurs to the participants or patients in a medical research. So, to conclude, the Chapathi experiment is a powerful reminder that informed consent is a fundamental ethical obligation of researcher. We need to treat participants with human dignity and autonomy. Any research conducted without genuine, freely given, comprehensively informed consent, no matter the scientific merit or good intention you have about the research, it violates the rights of research subjects. So, thank you very much for joining me today.